Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Mingo. I'm part of the Davidson Institute team, and I'm going to be your host for today. We're really excited to be here with you this morning. And so before we dive into the STARS information session, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping points so you have an idea of what to expect in this session. So first, the session is intended to run for 60 minutes. It will include a presentation followed by a Q&A, so you'll have a chance to ask questions. We will do our best to address as many questions as we can in the time allotted. Now, we'd like to point out that this is in a Zoom webinar setting. So it's designed so our staff can share their video, audio, and screen, but attendees are in view-only mode. Now, we do have the chat feature of Zoom enabled at various points in time. It's currently open if you have any technical questions, and we'll have some polls that if you need to, you can also utilize the chat. Otherwise, please direct all of your questions to the Q&A, and if you have any technical issues, you can enter them into the Q&A and we'll address them with you privately. Now, we do have many people, quite a few people in this session. So if you see a question that you'd like answer to, you can upvote, which is the little thumbs up icon, or comment on existing questions to show your interest in the answer. And you can also comment on your own questions. So if you might need to add some clarifying information or some context, you can do that by commenting on your own questions. We ask that you stay through to the end of the session. You'll then be directed to our post-event survey to help us gather feedback on your experience. And this session will be recorded. A recording of this live session will be available on the Davidson member community, and we'll also provide a YouTube link. So now diving into this session, I'm pleased to introduce you to Kayla Latin, our Director of Summer Programs here at the Institute. So Kayla, I'm passing this over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica. Let me just get my screen shared. All right. Well, like Jessica said, welcome everyone. We're really excited to talk more about our STARS summer camp today. And just wanted to quickly mention, just in case we have some people not in the Young Scholars Program attending the session today, just to keep in mind that STARS is exclusive to participants currently enrolled in the Young Scholars Program, but we'll talk more about eligibility here in a little bit. But before we jump into learning all more about STARS, we're going to start with a Q&A poll. Not Q&A, excuse me, poll. So our first one's on the screen. Jessica has launched it, and I'd love to hear how many parents and students here today have attended a summer camp before. How many of your students have attended camp before, yes or no? And this is just helpful information to take into consideration throughout the rest of my presentation to see who's here today and who has that experience or not. Okay, it looks like a majority at about 90% have their student has not been to summer camp before, and that is actually pretty common at STARS. We'll talk a little bit more about that and getting goodness of fit and preparing for STARS, and if your student's ready for the experience or not, but that is really common at STARS. Okay, our next poll. I'd love to hear the age range of your students here today. Is your student under 8 and maybe you're looking for STARS experience once they're age eligible in that 8 to 11 age range, or maybe your student's over 11 and you're unaware that we do have an age range eligibility, or if your student's right in that range from 8 to 11, where are they at? It's always fun to see kind of how many we have from each age range. Okay, it looks like a really even spread. Majority are at the 8 to 9 age range, and then we also have a number of parents in 10 and 11 as well, so wonderful. Okay, and our last poll, I'd love to hear, excuse me. what you'd love to learn more about today. So we're actually going to talk about all these topics, and actually another one or two that aren't listed here, but I'd love to know where to focus my efforts. So if we have majority of parents wanting to learn about a certain area here, I'd love to hear from you. And if you do have one that's not listed, you're welcome to, like, an overarching topic, not a question specifically. You can put that in the chat as well, but we'll also be using that Q&A function. Okay, looks like a majority would love to learn more about the schedule and life at STARS, academic sessions and activities and field trips, with a few sprinkled in wanting to know more about eligibility readiness, application process, staff, program changes. Wonderful. Let me check the chat box really quick. I don't know that any got placed in there. We'll address specific questions during the Q&A, and during the presentation, your question might also be answered. So let's jump in. All right, so before we get started, I also wanted to just kind of introduce myself a little bit and who's here today. So my name's Kayla. I'm director of our summer programs department. I've been with Davidson 9 years now, and this is my 10th summer, and I'm look forward to it every year. I've been in a couple different roles the first few years at working at Davidson, and but always working with the summer program department, and it's was just very clear from the beginning that this was an area that I just really had a passion about, bringing these experiences to these students, watching them grow each summer, developing these programs. And so just really glad to be here today. And we also have behind the scenes Avery Harris, our manager of summer programs. She's going to be helping with our Q&A box, and so she might be typing some answers to those questions, and leaving some for me to answer live as well at the end. But Avery has been with Davidson in a couple different roles over the past few years, starting as a program assistant or a camp counselor, and just loves summer camp. It's one of her biggest passions, and so when a full-time position opened for her about a year ago, she was eager and excited to join, and she's been a great addition to our team. We're really fortunate to have her here. And so if you're emailing or calling our department, you're likely to speak with Avery directly. I'm also there answering things here and there as needed, but Avery's kind of the face behind a lot of our communications, and she's here today. Okay, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking through all of these topics, starting with a little bit more about STARS and eligibility. Then we'll move into learning more about staff, the schedule, academic sessions, health and wellness, and then how to prepare for STARS, our highlighted changes for this upcoming summer, and then how to apply to the lottery. And then we'll round up with a Q&A. Okay, so a little bit more about STARS. This program was created by our wonderful co-executive directors, Katie Glenser and Amy Cummins, it's launched back in 2012. So it's been around for a little while now, and it's one of our most fun programs with this age range. So it's exclusive to Davidson Young Scholars. Students do have to be enrolled members of the Young Scholars program. If your student maybe enrolled a number of years ago and you haven't quite participated in anything, that doesn't matter. You don't really lose your enrollment into the program. So we're glad you're here and interested in finally joining in our summer programs. And this is often the first experience of a lot of our young scholars attending something in person for Davidson. So we're really excited you're here. And like all of our summer camps, we're located in Reno, Nevada on the University of Nevada, Reno campus, and we utilize our Davidson Academy brick and mortar school on campus for a lot of our programming. It is for students who are 8 to 11 during program dates. It's 5 days, 4 nights, so a little bit of a shorter program, but which is really age appropriate for this age range. And During the program, the biggest things we'll be doing on the main days are students attend academic sessions, all 3 different ones that we have. We go on academic and engaging field trips on campus, and then we have really fun curated social activities in the evenings. And then 2023 dates this year are Sunday, June 18th through Thursday, June 22nd, and it is right prior to the summit weekend. The summit starts the next day on June 23rd. So a lot of families who are interested in that summit event and have a student in this age range will come out for the week, check their student into STARS on Sunday, stay the week while they're at STARS, and then attend the summit with their student and fly home that following weekend. All right, so a little bit more about eligibility. Like I mentioned, students have to be a Davidson Young Scholar. They must be 8 to 11 years of age during program dates. So if your student's not in that age range, they likely are not going to be eligible. However, if you have a student turning 8 during those 5 days, please email us and reach out. We would be happy to still review an application to see if they're ready for a STARS experience. And then if they happen to be turning 12 on those 5 dates as well, they would still be eligible to attend. However, at the 11 age at the end of the range, they're also age eligible for our REACH summer seminar program. And so that is a little bit of a step up. It's a little bit longer and the academics are different setup. And so they're meant to be a little step up in that regard as well. So if you're not sure which one your student would be a better fit or which one they'd be more interested in, please email us. We'd be happy to talk through the differences. The REACH session was just on Tuesday, and we have a recording posted in the DMC for that as well. And then students, this is mostly really important at STARS, is the essential functions of a STARS student. So they must be able and ready to be away from and out of contact with family members during the duration of the program. We are a true summer camp where we do not allow cell phones or parent communication to students outside of emergency situations. So this is something to consider. It's understanding that students might be a little bit nervous about maybe that piece. That's not doesn't mean they're not eligible. That's totally natural and normal, but it is something to consider if they've maybe never been away from home, or for like sleepovers or things like that. That's something you can practice leading up to camp if they're hoping to attend this summer. They need to be ready to share a room with 1 or 2 other participants, likely 2. So we're going to be in a triple occupancy dorm. I'll talk more about that, but it is something just to consider. So it's actually really fun. It's like they're in their cabin bunks at summer camp. Usually we don't have too many issues with this, but we do have staff there on site in the dorm 24/7 working through any roommate concerns that come up. They need to be able to fall asleep without difficulty or minimal support. So some things to consider, because they do have roommates, night lights or music playing or things like that can be a little bit disruptive to their roommates potentially. So it's better if they're, able to fall asleep without those things, or, can use headphones or things like that if needed. But it is a benefit to them if they're able to kind of do that. It's normal to have some nerves the first few nights and have a little bit of or excitement, I should say, hard time falling asleep, but the support piece is key. So then they're also needing to be able to, speaking about sleep, they're needing to be able to function within a schedule that only allows up to 9 hours of sleep. I'll talk more about this in the schedule, but it's really more like 10. They can get about 10, 9 to 10, but they're excited. They're at summer camp, so it's hard to wind down, and then they're waking up early because they're excited. And so, but just keep in mind, it's only 4 nights. And so, this always maybe sometimes sounds concerning to parents each year, but it's usually not an issue for students. They're excited to be at summer camp. They need to be able to follow direction from other caregivers, such as our staff, and working through the schedule and transitions from activity to activity. They need to be able to follow our direction. That's important for their safety and for the functionality of the camp. They need to be without access to electronic devices that have the ability to connect to internet and or voice and text capabilities. So this includes like even a cell phone or a Kindle Fire with the internet Wi-Fi shut off. Because it could be turned on, we do not allow those devices at STARS. So they would need to come with like a true MP3 player or a digital camera to take pictures, or even like a throwaway camera. And this just really goes into our fully connected policy. So students are there to socialize with one another, make connections, focus on their academic sessions, have fun, and these kinds of devices really hinder that experience. So they're not allowed at STARS. They need to be able to ask for help if a problem or concern arises. And that's really important. We're constantly checking in with students, but it's good if they're able to, self-advocate and ask for help as well. And then operate independently we do provide supportive supervision regarding self-care. So we do shower reminders, toothbrush reminders. We're checking in about social emotional regulations, things like that. But they need to have some self-direction and independence and some of those things coming in. We can't force anybody to shower. We can't force anybody to do some of those things. So they're building in those routines now is something important to keep in mind. So if you're unsure if your student is ready for STARS at summer camp, especially if they're at that maybe younger age range or they struggle with some of these things, please just email us. We're not going to completely count you out of STARS in the lottery. It's a concern that we want to hear from you about. It's only going to benefit our staff and your student if we are prepared and learn more about them and to see if they're ready or not. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of STARS. Summer camp is a powerful tool in a student's life, and it's a really neat experience that I feel like sometimes students don't get to experience anymore. And so just really want to talk about how important summer camp is. It's a really cool tool for your student to build independence and self-confidence and life skills. And so they get to, ask those life skill kind of questions of people who aren't their parents, like, I don't know how to pick out something for lunch, or I'm having a hard time with my roommate, or things like that. Um, and they're seeking out support from other people, and that's a really huge thing. And just being away from home and parents for 5 days, 4 nights is a really big deal at this age. And it's a huge benefit to these students. It can build a lot of confidence in them that they completed it and had fun when they were away as well. The social connection piece of it is huge. Often, because we're a national program, our students are coming from all across the country in various educational backgrounds. Maybe they don't have friends or social connections in their area with other profoundly gifted students. And so they're coming to STARS and it's like, oh my gosh, these are my people. That's often what we find for students at STARS. And so it's really huge for their social connections. They're able to explore academic topics that are hopefully challenging to them, where you curate and build those each summer for this specific population. They get to experience living in a dorm hall on campus, which is really exciting, and most importantly, have fun. Okay, a little bit more about the staff at STARS. So in addition to Avery and I, we also have another full-time Davidson staff member who supports our programs. Her name is Gabby, but we also hire a number of seasonal employees every year. And it's a really big process to build this team every summer, and it's really exciting because they really bring the life to our program. So the first biggest piece that we hire is our program assistants, or PAs for short, and there are camp counselors. And they are paired with a group of small students that they're in charge of for the program. Their room that they stay in is right near their students. They're in charge of getting them up on time and to breakfast and to each activity throughout the day, and walk with them. And, we provide 24/7 supervision. They also kind of act like a mentor a lot in this age range too. And students are asking all kinds of questions and they go through program orientation, things like that with them, and just really have a lot of fun, support. They help lead our academic activities, and so they really bring the life to summer camp at Stars. We also have health supervisors, so thankfully me and Avery are not in charge of medications or health illness concerns or injuries. We hired two RNs to be our health supervisors, and they at Stars they actually end up staying in the dorm overnight, and so they're on site all day and overnight, and they're able to pass out medications and provide support in the cases of illness or injury. And we also hire our instructors. So thankfully, me and Avery also don't teach these students. We're not qualified for that. We hire Davidson Academy instructors to teach these academic sessions. So they work with profoundly gifted students all year long. And then they also get to build these fun academic sessions to teach STAR students. So they have lots of experience coming into this program. We are members of the American Camp Association, and we utilize this association to build a lot of our policies and standards. This is the national program association for all camps, all types of camps across the country. Are members of this association, and they provide a lot of professional development and resources. We attend their national conference, which me and Avery are actually heading to next month. And so this is kind of the gold standard place for camps to be members of, and we are, and use a lot of that to make sure we're following good policies and standards. Okay, our schedule at STARS, which so many of you are looking to learn more about, so we'll talk about that right now. So the first day, Sunday, arrival day, is a lot of the day is spent traveling to Stars and coming to check-in. So one of our only highlighted really big change for Stars this year is that all participants must be checked in by a parent guardian. If your student's unable to be checked in by a parent guardian, you're welcome to appoint an adult over the age of 25 to travel with your student, but they cannot show up and check in themselves, and we do not provide a shuttle service or airport supervision. We no longer have that available this year and moving forward. And so parent guardians must travel with their student, or they must appoint an adult to travel with their student. And that all has to be done prior to June so that we know who's coming with who, and it's all chosen. If we're going to talk a little bit more about that too, but you're welcome to use the DMC to connect with other STARS parents, to kind of carpool if you know you need help with this piece. You know, if you're coming from a similar area, or need help with like flying or things like that, you can utilize other Young Scholar parents to help with this process, but it is a requirement this year. So then after check-in, we move right into getting your student all set up in their dorm. We do a kiss and go check-in. So parents and adults are checking in their students, and we have a whole different screening process for that. And then we take them into the dorms and get them settled. Parents aren't going into the dorms at all this year as well, but it's really fun time for them to start that life skill building and working with their camp counselor to get settled in their rooms with their roommates, and putting their clothes away and getting comfortable, getting their bed set up, things like that. Then we move right into program orientation and fun activities. So the rest of the night we go in detail through what to expect at STARS over the next few days, what our policies and rules are, what the schedule is going to look like, and a lot of team building, icebreaker, get to know you activities. We usually do a fun t-shirt decorating activity, things like that. And so we're just really moving into the fun and time for everyone to get to know each other and comfortable. And then the three main program days, Monday through Wednesday, this is our schedule. So we did find a way to try and bump things by about a half an hour this year. And so if your students attended STARS in the past, it'll still be the same daily schedule, but we wanted to provide more time in the morning for them to sleep and get up and get to breakfast. So breakfast, instead of being at 7:30, is now at 8 a.m. And they have about an hour to eat, get ready for the day, things like that, in our dining hall, and head off to their academic field trip on campus. This year, our tentative field trips, they're still being reserved, so we're not sure if they'll change, but this is what we're hoping to attend. The Desert Farming Initiative tour. This is a university initiative, and so it is right next to campus, and so it's really an academic piece. They're going to learn about agriculture. They're going to take a tour of the grounds, do some seed planting or transplanting, talk more about greenhouse growing and things like that for the Desert Farming Initiative. And then we're hopeful to attend engineering labs. The engineering department on campus is going to do some outreach and some really fun hands-on activities from that. And then the Nevada Historical Society Museum on campus as well is something we're hoping to take to students on a tour of. There's a gift shop there. It's usually one that they really enjoy. Then we'll head back for a little bit of dorm time to just kind of regroup, have some free time, play with their friends, put their things away from their field trip before we head to lunch. And after lunch, they get a little bit of kind of downtime in our courtyard in our Davidson Academy where they can outside play and get some sunshine. We will have some calm bunk meetings to kind of just bring the energy down and redirect before we move into academic sessions. And then during academic sessions, those are from 2 to 5, 3 hours long, but we do provide a couple breaks throughout that where they can have a snack and just, take a break to refocus. And they'll be attending all 3 academic sessions. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. After that, they'll move into more like getting energy out, some sunshine time in our courtyard before we head into dinner. And then after dinner, we usually have like a floor meeting where we explain the evening activity for the night, and then we release them off into having fun in their evening activities this year. Usually it's things like curated arts and crafts, board games, a movie night. I'm not sure, exactly how this is going to look yet, but we're really hopeful to have Ronan Harzi, who does chess with a lot of Davidson Young Scholars, and at the summit, he might do a curated thing for the STARS kids this year we're really excited about. That's optional if your student's not into chess, then they don't have to attend as well. And then we sometimes do water games as well. Our last night, we have a PIA PA activity where students play water games and earn tickets, and they get to vote for which camp counselor or PA gets to be pied in the face with a shaving cream pie. And it's a really fun last night at camp, something I look forward to every summer. And then we head back to the dorms and we have bunk meetings where we get to small group debrief, talk about how, what was fun from the day, have some curated check-in time with the program assistant and their small group of students, and just bring the energy down before it's getting ready for bedtime by 9 p.m. And then the last day, this is kind of what it's going to look like. We'll wake up and breakfast is going to be a little bit earlier this last day so that we can get our activities in before checkout. So they'll head to breakfast, and after that we have closing activities, which is actually really fun. We play a slideshow of pictures from the previous few days, and it's really fun. Students are like, "Hey, that's me," in the pictures, and they really love watching it. It's usually a little bit of a longer slideshow, and it's really fun for the students to look at. We do thank you cards for our staff, our program assistants, and for the dining hall and things like that. We make the kids do thank you cards for those, and it's really fun to see what they put on there. We do a t-shirt signing time, so kids can go around and sign each other's t-shirts, kind of like yearbook signing time. And then just some more last play social time before we head back to the dorms to pack. And we'll do a few little goodbye activities in the dorm before checkout at 10 a.m. Okay, and then a little bit more about, so now that we know the overview of the schedule, just kind of the student life at STARS. So our housing, we stay in a residence hall on the university campus, and we provide linen since it's such a short experience, so you don't have to pack linen. So that comes with a sheet, like a fitted sheet, a loose sheet, a blanket, pillow, pillowcase, and I think it comes with a towel, hand towel, and washcloth. And so that's all set for your student. If that changes and the dorm's not going to be able to have those packets, we'll let everyone know, and then they will have to pack those items. But we're hopeful that we can provide that this year. We'll be back in Argenta Hall. So it was just recently renovated and it's actually really beautiful, and we're really excited to be back in Argenta Hall. This is the hall that we always usually have been on for since the beginning. And this past summer we had to be in Peavine Hall, which was fun, but it's a little bit for like a block south of this dorm hall, where it's actually attached to the dining hall, Argenta Hall is, and so we prefer this one. It's just much easier to get our students to and from meals when it's all in one place. And it has triple occupancy, which a triple version of roommates actually tends to be a little bit better than just only having one. And so in the room, there's going to be 3 beds, and they each get their own desk and dresser, and then there is like a little closet space where they can hang up some stuff if they do bring hangers, not necessary though. And then in the room is also a bathroom. So the sink area is open, but then right next to that there's a door, and behind the door is a shower and a toilet. And so students have privacy. We require changing and showering to be done behind a closed door, and to take turns. No, 2 people aren't allowed in there at once. And so that's kind of the setup for that. On our dorm floor, so we have our own floor where it's just our staff and students. There's no UNR students, there's no UNR staff. It's just Davidson, and it's locked. Only our key cards can get on there. Of course, emergency staff can get in if needed, but we also have a common room area where we do a lot of gathering and announcements and some games. There's some study rooms. All of our program assistants stay on the floor near their group of students in their own private rooms. Our health supervisor has a nurse room on the floor, so students know where to go if they need to see her. And then we also have like our command center staff room, where our our admin staff like myself and Avery can be on site in the dorms as well as needed. Okay, dining at Stars. So like I mentioned, we'll be in the Down Under Cafe. It's at the very bottom of the Argenta Hall, and it's attached. It's really nice. This was also really recently renovated, and it's buffet style. So we do help students at the Stars program at this age range. We do a tour for them the first night. The dining staff takes them around and shows them all the areas, all the options, and then anyone who's maybe having a little bit hard time or overwhelmed by the choices or a little bit nervous, our staff are really good at making sure everyone's finding meals, and doing okay, and getting food, and then we all sit together to eat as well. There's lots of different options like comfort foods, pizza, salad bar, an Asian inspired section, falafel section. It really just depends on whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, but there's a lot of stations and a lot of options, and it really is curated for students who, there's lots of options for students who are dairy-free, gluten-free, kosher, things like that. We have students, a number of them attend every summer and do well at our programs. If you think about it, the college students, there's lots every year that come stay in the dorms and are in those diets as well. So the dining staff's really used to curating meals to provide diets for those food for diets like that. But specifically, if your student does have food allergies, please contact us. We would be happy to talk with you. But there are usually no nuts, or there's only one area that has peanuts and it's highly labeled. Typically, we ask students to avoid it. I don't even know if they'll have that available, though. Usually they take out all nuts from the dining facility. But they're really used used to and good at working with us for food allergies. We have students also attend with severe food allergies every summer, and we look through the menu with these families. The dining staff connects the chef directly to the families if needed, and we make sure that there's plenty of options and food available for students with severe food allergies as well. But we'd be happy to start that conversation with you now. Students are also welcome to bring their own snacks. We do provide 2 snacks a day, one during field trip and one during academic sessions. And then about halfway through the program, students will have the option to go to our bookstore Wolf Shop, where there are snacks they can purchase with their own spending money as well. Okay, a little bit more about the academics at STARS. There's 3 different academic sessions and students rotate in groups through them. So they're going to attend one different one each day, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And they're all taught by Davidson Academy instructors. This is a really fun program for them to teach at because it's just meant to be exploratory, fun and engaging, hands-on, and they're learning some new concepts and skills, and they get to have fun and build something sometimes or write something and different things like that. And I'll go through what the 3 are this year. So the first I want to point out is our physics course. Brett Juicy has been teaching at STARS for a long time, and this is always a really popular academic session at STARS. He always has it's really nice and STEM based, and so he always has lots of cool hands-on projects that go with it. And so this year it's about electricity, and he has a really cool design for this, and he does a really great job at differentiating. So students who he's good at making it age appropriate, but knowing that they're profoundly gifted, of course, and he can differentiate and as needed for students who maybe need a little bit more of a challenge. The next, we finally are having math back at STARS. It's been a couple years where we haven't had math, and so we're excited to bring math back. And Diana Martin has been teaching at Davidson Academy for a number of years as well, and she's doing spherical geometry, and this one sounds so much fun. I'm really excited to have this one back at STARS. And then lastly, Dr. Ian DeJong is going to be teaching this really fun reading and writing session. If you haven't read this session description, please get to the website to read it. I'm really excited. He has a shiny character generating machine he's going to be working with the students on, and he really makes this fun and engaging and hands-on. So if reading and writing isn't quite your students' most favorite, don't worry, because this is a really fun, creative session, and all of our students really enjoyed him this past summer. So again, just to reiterate, these are meant to be just challenging and hands-on exploratory topics, but they're not for credit. There's no evaluation. STARS is really a social fun camp experience, while keeping in mind that these students are profoundly gifted and want to learn and have fun, challenging academic sessions. And so they're there for that, and that's kind of the purpose. We do help kind of build some of the classroom skills. So at this age range, some students might need a little bit work in that area. And so our program assistants or teaching assistants are in the class helping, build some of those skills, or maybe your student's homeschooled and they need a little bit assistance knowing classroom skills. That's something that is touched on at STARS. And then of course, like I mentioned, our staff are there checking in as needed, but it's a really fun 3 hours at camp. Health and wellness. So I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like prior to your arrival at camp. So we intake a lot of health information, and it's really important for our success of having your students at camp and for our health supervisor to know who's coming. So we have an in-depth online health history form. It's really important that that's all the information is accurate and up to date and appropriately answered in there. All students must be insured, and we must have a copy of a recent physical exam within the past 2 years from program dates. We do require immunization records, so we follow the Nevada Department of Education and the Washoe County School District requirements for immunization, and so those are linked on our website if you're curious what that looks like. But the typical immunizations that are required for school, we also require for camp, and This year, we will not be requiring the COVID-19 vaccine. However, it is highly encouraged that students and staff are immunized for COVID-19, including any eligible boosters, but it is not required this year. And we do require all medication information to be sent to our staff prior to, so we can appropriately prepare. Again, this is all subject to UNR's policies and protocols. So since we are staying on a university campus in their residential halls and staying in their residence halls, eating in their dining halls, utilizing all of that, we're subject to what they require. So if that does change, whether that's for the COVID-19 testing or vaccine policies, if they require that of us, we will then have to require it of our students. However, they're not currently requiring that, so we don't imagine that being backtracked, but it's just something to keep in mind that we're subject to their policies and protocols. So our health supervisor reviews all that information, contacts parents as needed if she has any questions, and gets prepared for camp. Then during the program, we do a really big health screening upon check-in, and that's really important to make sure everyone's coming into camp healthy and not spreading any communicable illness. And then we also collect all medications, including over-the-counter medications and vitamins, and those are all kept locked in our dorm floor in our nurse room, and that is a requirement. But we do, of course, let students or program assistants carry EpiPens or inhalers for students as needed. Of course, those can be kept with them. And like I mentioned, our health supervisor is on site daily, so she's there to pass out medications, help with any skim knees, bloody noses, any kinds of things like that that come up, or if a student is starting to feel ill, she's there to address those student needs. And then during the program, of course, we are also subject to UNR's policies and protocols for isolation for sick students and things like that. Okay, so how can you prepare for STARS? The number one place I always tell parents that is really important to prepare your student, the first step is to check out the parent resources section of our website. So Avery is going to send a link to this in the chat, but I highly recommend, if you haven't looked in here, that you check it out. We do have a couple new areas for this year, but in the getting ready area, we have health and medical care. That's really important just to read through what that looks like in more detail at camp. We have more information on homesickness and really why, what you can do to prepare your student leading up to camp, and then how we address that at camp, and a little bit about kid sickness too. So if maybe parents are worried about missing their student while they're at camp, we have some really good information on why camp's so important and have that space away from parents at camp. We will have our program handbook available soon. The 2023 one's not linked on there quite yet, but it's going to look really similar to 2022. And so you're welcome to check out last year's handbook, and just know that the new one's going to become available soon that parents will sign and agree to. Our travel page, so we have our check-in and check-out times and more information about Davidson does not provide shuttle services or airport supervision, and parent guardians are required to check in students. That's all listed on our travel section. And then the packing list isn't quite ready yet, but you don't need it yet, thankfully. However, it's going to, again, look very similar to 2022, which is still available in the packing list area. And so you're welcome to check that out. But 2023 will be listed in appropriate time this spring for families who are enrolled. And then in our policy section, please read more about our supervision at camp so that you know kind of what that looks like and your student knows what that looks like coming into camp. Another area that's really important is our communicable illness plan and policy. This has been available, and we actually wrote this prior to the COVID-19 pandemic when measles started outbreaking across the country, ironically. So we've kept that in place, and now COVID-19 falls under that as a communicable illness. So in there is our vaccine preventable disease policy. So if your student does or does not have a vaccine that prevents certain diseases or illness, we have a policy in there about what happens if an outbreak of that disease occurs either in your area prior to camp or in our Reno, Nevada area. and it has what happen, like our policies and protocols at camp, what we're going to do in instance of any sort of outbreak or communicable illness occurring. Electronic device policy, that's a really important area to read about too. It's a fully connected community at STARS. We do not allow devices, cell phones or other devices that can connect to the internet or voice and text, even with it just turned off. And that's really only to benefit our staff and your students, and to make sure that they are, you know, connecting with one another and really have that space to be away at summer camp. And then communication. So since you're not in direct communication with your student, it talks a little bit more about like how our staff communicates with parents, and we reach out with daily updates with photos of your students at camp. And so those are sent out daily. And then no news is good news in this policy, but we do reach out directly to parents if we have any behavior concerns, medical concerns, or if we have any updates regarding your student, we do email and call as needed as well. And then parents can email or call our staff to check in as needed as well. Okay, beyond the program, just like list of eligibility. So is STARS a good fit for your student this summer? So some things to keep in mind is it is 5 days, 4 nights away from home and parents. And it is a really great first starter summer camp program. But if this is something that your student is really nervous about, or they have no experience of sleepovers or away from home at grandma and grandpa's house or things like that, you know, it doesn't mean they're not eligible and it might not be necessarily a good fit. However, some are going to be, you know, struggling with this more than others. And so it's just something to keep in mind if your student's ready and if they can do some practice overnights away prior to summer camp. Another really, really big one that sounds maybe a little bit obvious, but it is something I'd like to point out, that your student wants to attend and has expressed interest in going to STARS in summer camp. And part of the way you can build some of that is looking at the website together, looking at the academic sessions, reading about them, looking at the daily schedule that's also linked on the website, um, talking about the friends and people that are coming to STARS. It's other young scholars, things like that. And so that's going to really help build confidence going into camp, even if they are a little bit nervous about certain aspects or have questions. That's okay. But all the more that you do this, the more they might be confident coming into camp. You know, we have had some parents in the past not tell their student about STARS at all until like a week before camp, and we didn't know that either. And then the student was really upset and scared coming into camp. And so that's not going to set them up for success. And so it's really important to have that interest now that the lottery application's open. You have some time to look at that before the deadline. Another thing to keep in mind is that they're going to be sharing a room with other participants. And so there is no availability or options to have their own room. And so just something to keep in mind that we do help students through roommate concerns if they come up, but just something to keep in mind specific to your student if they're ready for that kind of experience. They will be in the fully connected community and not have cell phones. And so usually at this age, that's not a huge concern, but just something to keep in mind specific to your student. They need to be able to follow directions from our staff, and that's huge. There's lots of transitions at STARS. Unfortunately, it's a jam-packed schedule because it is a short program. So we're going to our 3 meals a day, we're going to our field trips, we're going to our dorm time to have fun, and we're going to our academic sessions. And then in the evening, we're doing lots of fun camp activities. And so just thinking through if your student's ready to follow the direction of our staff and other adults to make sure we can get everyone through the schedule and to each activity. They also need to operate independently when it comes to hygiene and meals and things like that, but we do provide some supportive supervision in that, but they should be able to do some of those things on their own with their own guidance. And then falling asleep with minimal support is huge as well. And so the schedule does only allow up to 9-ish hours of sleep. Could be more, could be less, depending on how hard it is for your student to fall asleep at night or how early they're waking up because they're excited. But it's only 4 nights. Just something to keep in mind on your students' sleep habits. So what can you do to prepare for this experience at this age range, and for this being a starter summer camp for a lot of students, a shorter program? One thing to keep in mind is to practice overnights away from home. So maybe they've had a summer camp experience before and they're don't need to quite do this as much, or maybe it's been a while, or maybe they haven't had any of those experiences. That's really huge then for them to prepare coming to STARS, is to do some sleepovers with friends or with grandma and grandpa or family members. That's huge. It just kind of helps get them ready to be away from mom and dad and prepare for camp. This might be even especially huge coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Maybe it's been a while. You used to be doing these things, but now kind of got out of practice of it. Jumping back into that will be really good to prepare. Working on all those essential function items such as transitions, hygiene, sleep, those are huge, huge, huge at this age range. We have 60, about 60 students that have come to STARS that are 8 to 11. And so the more that they can practice these things and work with our staff to get through the schedule and to do their hygiene and sleep, the more successful and just smooth, fun experience they'll have. Also, reviewing the website and handbook together is huge, so they know what the policies are. And you can make it more in their age terminology if you'd like to as well, but that's only going to help them practice and be prepared. Sharing, so this is huge at STARS. If you're positive and you're consistent with your positivity about camp and you're confident in their ability, that's huge. Students really pick up on that. And so if you're talking about, you're not like, it's one thing to be a little empathetic to some questions or some nerves, but it's a different thing to talk negatively or that you're scared or things like that. And so maybe if you have some of those feelings about sending your kid away to summer camp, keeping those to yourself and really being positive when you're talking about summer camp is really a huge factor in preparing for camp for your student. And then this might also sound obvious, but like at this age range, a lot of parents are packing for them and just sending them to camp. But if you include them in their packing, they're going to feel more confident knowing what they have when they are away from mom and dad. Like you can include them in picking out their clothes or whatever things that they want to bring with them. That's really huge. Making a list even of what you've packed so that when they have to repack their items at the end for checkout, they can go through and make sure they repacked everything. Our staff help with that, but that can be huge as well. Okay, just a few more things before we get to Q&A. The biggest highlighted change for STARS this year is our travel days. So we no longer provide airport supervision or a shuttle service. Parents and have to bring their student to check out and check and then arrive in person to check their student out at the end as well. Students cannot arrive by themselves, which most airlines don't allow for that anyways, but at this age range, but just something to keep in mind. And parents are welcome to head to the discussion forums on our Davidson member community to connect with other STARS parents if they'd like to set up some carpool situations. Okay, a little bit more about how to do the lottery, and then we'll get to Q&A. So the application is open, but it's not first come, first serve. It's lottery based. We always have way more applicants than spaces available each year. And so we do it on a lottery system. But keep in mind, we do have a wait list. And then if parents are dropping or not paying their deposits, we move people off the wait list. And there's movement off the wait list every year. The deadline is coming up in 2 weeks on Friday, January 27th. This is a hard deadline. So it's not first come, first serve, but you just have to get it in by Friday, January 27th. So it is a short application. It shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes, 30 minutes at most, and that's taking your time going through it. So it can be done shorter than that as well. And then a few things to keep in mind. The overview steps, really your first step is to review the essential functions in the website and then get into the online application. And so once you're done reading the website, you know all the requirements and you're confident that this is a good fit for your student. And if you're not, you can email us. And then you're getting into that online application. Pretty much the whole thing's going to be completed by a parent, but there is one question that we want in your student's words. So whether you ask them that beforehand and then you type it up, or they're there with you when you're answering that question, we really want to hear and have that written in the student's words. And then we review all those applications and make sure everyone's eligible for the lottery. So we reach out to families if we do have any questions about their application or eligibility for STARS. And we love connecting with you to do that. And so it's not a bad thing. It's just to get to know your student more and to make sure that it is a good fit so that not only are they successful, but we are as well. Then we contact families via mass email to everyone eligible by February 2nd to say, okay, we reviewed your application, your student can go into the lottery. That's going to go out by February 2nd, and then the next day, at the latest, it could be going out a day or two before. And then by February 3rd, you get to know, okay, did my student get a spot in the lottery or are they on the wait list? And we do provide you your wait list number as well, so that you'll know where they kind of stand, and there is movement every year off the wait list. And so just something to keep in mind. While we can't always predict how much movement, there is movement. And then if your student does get a spot, whether that's initially or from the wait list, the deposit is due February 10th. And so, excuse me, those initially placed in the program have to pay that. That's a hard deadline as well. By February 10th, it's $500 deposit. And so typically if you're in the wait list, you're probably not going to hear about a spot opening up until after February 10th. We get lots of emails every day. Is there a spot open? Is there a spot open? I promise we're going to email you if there's a spot open for your student. And then you'll have about anywhere from a couple business days to a week to pay your deposit before you move on to the next person on the wait list. All right, that wraps up our presentation. We do send out updates regarding the program in newsletters, and we'll send reminders about the deadline for the lottery application, but you're welcome to contact us or email us. We'd love to speak with you. If you have a sibling who is applying to the Young Scholars Program, it is too late for this year, but if you want to make sure that they're in time to then attend STARS in 2024, you can reach out to the Young Scholars application, email there, and then just a reminder of our 2023 program dates. Okay, so I'm going to open the Q&A box. If you're unsure, Avery has been answering a lot of these via writing. So if you're unsure if your question's already been answered or not, go ahead and open that back up and check. She's answered a lot of these via writing, but I'm going to go through a number live as well. And we'll be staying on probably about 5 minutes after to answer as many as we can. Okay, our YS is going to be exactly 8 years in June, and we are from the East Coast. Do you recommend one of the parents stay in Reno when STARS is going on, just in case anything happens? It really could go either way. We have a number of families do one or the other. So honestly, we always have had a 24-hour pickup rule if there is a behavior concern or an illness that arises. That's something to keep in mind, is getting from the East Coast out to Reno if needed within 24 hours, but that's really rare that that happens. And honestly, it's really about half and half. We have a number of parents who stay because they're attending the summit, and that's really the main reason they're staying, less about concerns. And then we have a number of families who, they have work or things where they are not unable to relocate for the week to stay in Reno for even if they're planning on coming to the summit, and they're just back at home. And so just knowing, like, if you have more questions about that, please let me know. But I don't have a recommendation either way. It's really your preference as far as what you're able and willing to do. And we have families do it both ways successfully every summer. Okay, what is the STARS culture around accepting and supporting 2E or twice exceptional children? For example, is there flexibility built in to accommodate autistic young scholars who are independent but might need some flexibility due to sensory sensitivities, etc.? Yes, that's a great question. So just the nature of students who are profoundly gifted, a lot of our students are also in the identification of being twice exceptional or 2E, and they come to STARS every summer. And so yes, it's a part of our staff training every year. We talk specifically about these students in our health intake information. We also, depending on, we want to hear about your students' twice exceptionalities in the application process and in the health intake section, because then we actually work with parents over the phone and email to learn more about your students and what is helpful for them in moments of sensory sensitivities or flexibility and transitions that needs to happen to prepare our staff. So then we go through general being flexible for these students, but also specific students who maybe have a little bit more concerns than others. Just know that like it could kind of border on the eligibility or goodness of fit. Our program, like I said, we work with these students year round in the Davidson Institute, and then every summer, that's the population that's attending STARS, and we love having students from all kinds of backgrounds and exceptionalities come to STARS. And so we go through the training and we provide lots of tips and protocols, and then our admin staff is there all day as well to kind of address any big concerns that come up. So your student likely would feel really comfortable coming and is able to have some flexibility as needed, but just keep in mind that there is a certain limit to some of those things. So if you have specific questions, please email us, but we definitely allow students to sit out of certain activities as needed. If they're overwhelmed or having some sensory sensitivities, they can sit out. They can take a break. We provide calm spaces for breaks, things like that, but they do need to be able to go with our staff from A to B place and need to be able to kind of go from that and stay with our group, because that's a safety concern as well. But they can take breaks. We have some students wear noise canceling headphones or things like that. They can head out of different activities within eyesight to get away from some of the things. And if they need transition reminders, we provide those usually 10 minutes, 5 minutes, different things like that. If a student needs a lot of those or more direct of those, we can tap their shoulder and get like direct transition reminders to them as well, instead of just to the main group. It's kind of all over the place. There's a lot that we do. I didn't really touch a lot on that during the presentation, but I'd be happy to talk with you more about what that what that looks like at STARS with you. So you can shoot us an email if you have more questions. Okay, our kiddo takes ADHD medication that suppresses his appetite at lunch. Other than sitting and eating, are there other activities he could do during this time? As a result of not eating lunch, he's often very hungry at night and can eat 2 dinners. Is there something we can work through? Yes, that's definitely something we can work through. We have students take ADHD medication every summer, and so we are aware that it can suppress appetites. But yeah, if maybe bringing a little backpack and they can, we wouldn't really, our focus is most of the students will be eating and the staff too, but so we're not going to like curate necessarily activities, but if they can bring like a little backpack and have a book or a coloring book or a card game they can play with themselves, things like that, they will have to sit at the table with us. We're in that big dining hall with everyone, and so we can't just take them away to do their own thing. They're going to have to still be with the group, but definitely something that you can bring for them to do during that time. And then dinner, it's buffet style, so they can eat lots of dinner, and we can have some snacks available in the evening for him as well after dinner if needed. All right. Do you check rooms at night to make sure the campers are not staying up chatting, playing with roommates, or reading at night? Yes, to a certain extent. So we have lights out time, and we explain to students what that expectations of that looks like. And so keeping in mind though, like at a certain point, we can remind them, nope, lights off, you need to put your books away, it's time to go to bed. And we could do that a couple of times, but we can't be in their room all night, making sure they're not chatting and playing. However, it's an adjustment. The first night or two, they might be really excited, and there might be a little bit more of this than other nights, but we do check in with them. Program assistants are going to each of their rooms multiple times during that lights out time to make sure everyone's settled and in bed. And so that is something maybe to practice or talk more about leading up to camp, that you're going to have to follow staff's direction and put the books away when it's time to put the books away and things like that. And just reminding them that sleep's important, and they're going to have more fun the next day if they get some sleep. But it is something we do check in about. Okay, I'll get to a couple more, and if I don't get to your question, please do not be discouraged and shoot us an email, because we'll be responding to those as quickly as we can, knowing that the application's open and you want to get that in the next 2 weeks. All right. For first-time applicants, could you speak a bit on what you'd like to see in the application, specifically descriptive questions on why your child is ready and from the student? That's a great question. So just really going back through those essential functions and the schedule at STARS, why do you feel your student's ready for that experience? Could be something like, they've attended a summer camp successfully before, or they go to school and do overnights and they do well, or maybe they do well with all those essential functions. One they might kind of struggle with, and talk about why or what they're struggling with one of those. It doesn't mean they're not eligible right away. It's just something that's really good for us to know. But going back to, like, if they're ready, it's going through that essential functions. It's okay if they're a little bit nervous about a point or two, or being away from home. That's normal, like I said, and natural. But have they successfully are they able to meet those essential functions? That's really the biggest thing. And from the student, that's just really check in to make sure parents are talking with their students about this experience and they're not hiding it from them just to surprise it on them. If a student's excited and engaged, even if, like I said, they're a little bit nervous or have some questions, that's okay. But if they're excited and they're looking forward to a certain aspect or two at camp, that just tells us that those conversations have been had, that the student is looking forward to the experience, because they're going to have a much more successful time at STARS when those conversations are happening. Okay, this is a great question. So what is the reason behind removing the option of airport supervision and shuttle service? So over the years, this has increasingly been really taxing on our staff. We've actually had a really hard time securing affordable and appropriate transportation. With the shuttle service with the university, they've decreased the amount that they've given available. And so we've had to go with private parties, and it's increasingly more expensive. In addition, our staff is really small, and so to take out like it takes about a team of 5 people to do airport shuttle services, and then they're not a part of the check-in welcome process, and then we're usually always delayed for program orientation. So like I said, the program is jam-packed, and the students attending, it's really important to get through all those steps. And so when you're arriving with your parent guardian within the check-in 2-hour time frame, we're able to start on time and get ready. A really other big piece of this is like a safety, health, and wellness concern as well. We do those health screenings at check-in, and so if your student does have some concerning symptoms coming into camp, they might not be able to check in, and so they would, of course, need then a parent guardian to take them and to head back home, or whatever that looks like. That's not common. That's really, 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 really rare, but it's a safety concern issue, so that parents are able to be there for that check-in process, or an adult care for the student. We don't anticipate having to test for COVID this summer, but if the university requires us to for admission to the dorm, and a student is positive, they would not be able to check into STARS. And so we need to have a parent, guardian, or adult then take care of the student, and if they're not able to join us. There's lots of reasons, and that's one of the biggest ones. Okay, we only have one more, so I'm going to go ahead and answer. I know we're going over, but I want to get to it. So, how are the younger and more introverted campers made to feel safe, especially in the presence of older and more extroverted, confident kids? I'll answer that first. So, yes, that's a great question. We always have students who are, I think, a lot more sometimes tend to be on that introverted side than extroverted. But yes, there's definitely both at camp. And it's honestly like this big, loud, fun program experience. However, we provide a lot of those debrief calming times, quiet times for connection for students who are a little bit more introverted to have a more quiet, calmer space to connect with one another. Our staff, since we have a really small staff to student ratio, they have about only 6 kids that they're in their group that they're in charge with, and they're really trained and encouraged to help with those connections. So they are not only are they with kids all day long throughout the whole program schedule every day and overnight, they're checking in with their 6 constantly. So they're counting them to make sure they're all there all the time. And they're asking like, hey, do you know, have questions or need help? They'll often come in and play with a student, with a group to encourage those who are a little bit more introverted or having a hard time. You know, like I said, we have all those check-ins. It's common for introverted students to maybe take a minute to get a little bit more comfortable, but we do a lot of sit down small group activities for program orientation before we build up to more fun, larger group games to help with that process. Is there an anti-bullying policy and how is that monitored, watched for? Great question. So in our handbook, we do have core values and code of conduct, and we talk about it at program orientation. And so we are making sure students are following that. We talk about what the expectations are, and we talk about check-in each day at camp. We do a large group check-in of like, okay, today, how can we show kindness or things like that? And it's constantly monitored and watched for. So like I said, our staff is with the students. We're leading the activities, we're with them throughout the whole program. And so they're constantly listening for any concerns or things that come up for. And we immediately will separate students as needed, have conversations, just address the behavior as needed as it comes up and connect with the admin staff will connect with parents as needed as well. So that's kind of all of our questions today. I apologize I went a little bit over, but I wanted to get to you. If you do have more questions that come up, please email us.
Oh, thank you so much, Kayla, for just all this information about stars and addressing all the questions from our audience. Before we close this session, do you have any closing statements for our audience?
Just to remember, it is not first come, first serve. It's lottery based, but the deadline is hard, Friday, January 27th. So get your application in before that. And please, please, please email us if you have any questions.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Please remember to do the survey after the session closes. If you'd like to view the session again, we will have the recording posted in the Davidson member community. So have a wonderful day, everyone, and we hope to see you in another virtual event soon.